What's up, everybody? Peter X's Offer here with another episode of Three Things for the Month. And this month we're doing August, and the three things are covering two huge tours this summer and into the fall. Taylor Swift and Beyonce, farewell tours, Kiss, Aerosmith, and others. And finally, um, Taylor Swift giving $55 million in bonuses to her folks on tour with her. So why are these two tours important? That being Taylor Swift and Janet Jackson. Well, what they're doing now is on par as to what Michael Jackson did with Thriller back in the 80s. And interestingly enough, the sales for Thriller still listed as 35 to 40 million, and it's been that way for since the 80s, which is interesting because originally I bought Thriller on album and then bought the cassette, and then in the early 90s when the CDs blew up, I bought a CD. So those numbers haven't moved in a long time for Michael Jackson. I think that's a little suspicious. But going back and the early 80s, $10 for a CD times 40 million, that puts you 35 million, it puts you between 350 to 400 million. And that, back then tickets for a concert were 10, 15, $20 at the most. So, the money back then was made in the album sales. Well, that's changed now. I think there's, last I checked, about 270, 280 billion streams, songs with a billion streams on, Spotify, and a billion streams gets you about $3 million. So, streaming is not the cash cow in the music industry. It is live concerts. And as of right now, the two biggest tours of all time were Ed Sheeran in his 2017 and 2019 tour, and then Elton John passed him up in the 2018 to 2023 tour that he had. And both of those tours, brought in about $1 billion. These Taylor Swift concerts and um, Beyonce, her tour is about to shatter those numbers. So for Taylor, it's averaging about $254 per ticket. So, when you hear these eye popping numbers, she's not running, charging. That's about average for a concert now. And obviously, secondhand, you're paying $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 for a ticket. She's making about $13 million per night, and she's estimated to make $1.5 billion by the time the tour is over with. Beyonce's making 8.9 million a show. So Beyonce's second to Taylor Swift, and Taylor's playing a lot of domes, like NFL domes, and Beyonce's doing some of that, but Taylor's playing some of the biggest venues she can play. So if she's bringing in 1.5 billion, that means Beyonce will probably bring 1.1, 1.2 billion, and I think 6 billion is about that next group as far as bringing in the night. So you know, Beyonce's at 9 billion and or 9 million a show, and Taylor's doubling them at 13 million. So so this is big news. This is there are no kings. There are two queens when it comes to making the money in the music business right now, because this is the cash cow. Um, this is equal to, back in the day, gold records was 500,000 copies sold. Platinum was 100 or was 1 million. Diamond was 10 million. And so, this is beyond diamond easily. You had, I mean, there wasn't many double diamond albums. I mean, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, the Eagles Hotel California, AC/DC Back in Black, um, Led Zeppelin 4. These are all double diamond albums, and there's only a handful of them. So, I mean, what they're doing really is historic. So when you look at the numbers, I mean, this is historic, as far as gender goes. The top grossing tours of all time, Madonna is coming in at 14 with her 2008-2009 tour. Pink is coming in at 15 with her 2018-2019 tour. And the top 10 tours of the 80s, only Tina Turner is the only woman on that list. And the top 10 tours of the 90s, you have two women on that list, Tina Turner and Celine Dion. So this is big news. And this is, I mean, tip of the cap to Taylor Swift and to Beyonce. Um, the whole gold, platinum, uh, diamond thing ended, in the early 2000s when streaming started. But there's only about 40 to 50 albums that were diamond that sold over 10 million, and about 12 of those were done by women. So again, what, a quarter. So I mean, we're in rarefied air. Just to give you some idea of some of those diamond albums by women: Shania Twain, "Come On Over," 1977, 17 million. Alanis Morissette, "Jagged Little Pill," 1995, 15 million. Carole King, "Tapestry," 14 million, 1971. Whitney Houston debut album, 1985, 14 million. Whitney's "The Bodyguard," 13 million. And Whitney's album from 1997 also was in the diamond category. So Whitney had three diamond albums. Celine Dion, "Falling Into You" from 1996 was 11 million, and "Let's Talk About Love" is 10 million from 1997. So she had diamond albums in back-to-back years. And then Britney Spears had two albums on over diamond. I think those were her first two albums. And then the Dixie Chicks, and then Norah Jones's debut album was also diamond. But it's, 40 to 50 and then 12 women. So this is pretty historic, which is going on, and it's pretty cool. Finally, these are number two, these farewell tours. So as I mentioned, Kiss, Aerosmith, the Eagles are doing their farewell tour. Foreigners doing their farewell tour. Just heard Aerosmith because Steven Tyler, from what the newspaper said, fractured his vocal cord. I don't know what that means. I'm not a doctor, but that sounds serious. So Aerosmith probably will be off of the road until sometime in 24. George Clinton is also doing his final tour. Of course, he did his final tour last year too, but what they'll probably do is just like, um, Elton John's final tour spanned 5 years, I think. That's kind of what they're doing for George. So there's a lot of these really cool bands that are, and artists that are making their last rounds around the world. So, hey, catch them if you love them. I've seen Kiss and Aerosmith off that list, and George Clinton. Haven't seen the Eagles or Foreigner. It looks like the Rolling Stones might go out for a short tour again at some point. And again, but they're not going to be touring much longer either. So that's number two. And finally, number three, Taylor Swift dropped bonuses of $55 million for her people. Interestingly enough, she's coming here to Indianapolis to play Lucas Oil Stadium, which is where the Colts play. And I was a little kind of like, what's that going to sound like? And I talked to one of my, sound guys who does sound for a living, in concerts. Like, oh, I mean, she has the money, and the sound will be just fine because there's a lot of concrete and steel in Lucas Oil stadiums. But he also told me that there's rumors of other 40 trucks, 50 trucks, whatever. But she has two stages. So I mean, let's say she plays Indianapolis tomorrow night, and 3 nights from now she plays St. Louis. I mean, when when the Indianapolis stage arrives, the other stage in St. Louis, and those people will go and set up. And so he also says, sometime in the late '90s, early 2000s, they realized, you don't have to fill the truck up. It's cheaper to do big pieces and load off quickly and just, put the big pieces together. So interesting stuff. From what they reported, her truck drivers are getting $100,000 bonuses. And as of right now, I mean, Taylor's going to, Kansas City Chief games to see her beau, Travis Kelsey play. So I mean, she's in a little bit of a, what do you call, hiatus from touring. So, a couple weeks before this hiatus, those bonus checks hit. So good for, uh, Taylor, because I mean, hey, it's rough out there economically, and she's looking out for her people. So I just got to get her props there. So yeah, quick one for August. Three things. Appreciate you coming through. I got 5 albums out. Little funk, some R&B, little rap, just sprinkling a little EDM and even classic rock. I do a little bit of everything in my music. I'm 5 albums. I'm on all the streaming services. If you check out my channel here on YouTube, all my music's here. I also write science fiction fantasy and got 2 novels and a novella on Amazon. So subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and thanks again for coming through. Thanks.